Hey everybody, this is Roberto Blake of RobertoBlake.com helping you create something awesome today. So today's video is slightly different. You'll notice a little bit of a different camera setup and some things going on. One, I'm still testing the Sony RX100 Mark V as a new camera, and it's pretty sweet. The other thing is, this is one of those rare videos that I'm shooting in real time for you guys instead of pre-recording it weeks in advance. And part of that is I actually don't have a lot of backfill left because I've actually been traveling a lot. I'm actually still getting a little bit over a cold, and I really just wanted to make this video while I had some things on my mind. So let's talk about creative careers. In general, we're talking about things like graphic design, we're talking about photography, we're talking about being a writer, we're talking about anything you want to do as a creative person. This could include being a musician or performing artist, and what the truth of a career outlook looks like for you, because I know there are a lot of people, and a lot of these people, they're not coming from the industry, so they're telling you things, they're telling you there's no money in it, they're telling you there's no future in it, and you need something more practical, instead of aligning you with somebody who's been successful at what you've done, because there may be what they want to say are exceptions or anomaly, or it's so rare to be successful at that thing. But the reality is that they're saying that on some level they don't believe that you could do it, instead of putting you in a position to win. And just keep in mind, this is not me bagging on your parents, your aunts, your uncles, your teacher, or whoever is giving you this advice. I'm just saying that you have to really question the source here. If you wanted to learn how to drive a car, are you going to listen to somebody who's like, oh no, I never drive, I have too much anxiety around it, you see nothing but people getting into car accidents all the time? Is that somebody that you're going to take as the source on something? Or someone who is a great driver with a fantastic driving record, hasn't had an accident? I mean, just think about that from a practical point of view. So part of my advice and my spiel to you is that if you want to be successful at something, talk to someone who's actually been successful at it. Talk to someone who's actually made money at it, and they can tell you what the reality is and what it looks like. And I'm one of those people in this particular instance, but you need to find those people that are accessible to you in your everyday life, or in social media, or in your community, and find the people who've actually done it. Because those people can put you on a path and give you the advice and tell you what it looks like and how serious it is, what's changed and what's not. And for some people, that answer is college. Now, you guys know that I've been skeptical about certain things with college, and I went to college and my experience was great for the most part. But I also talk to college students every single day. I talk to graduates every single day. I also talk to the people who actually hire for a living every single day. My friends, my contemporaries, my colleagues, even my competitors. And I know what the anxiety is, even as someone myself who has to write checks to freelancers. I know what the anxiety is around hiring anybody. And I know what the reality and the outlook is for students in a way that they may not appreciate, professors may not appreciate, your parents may not appreciate, because you have to think, these are people who don't write checks to creative people for a living. So if your job and your business relies on writing checks to creative people to do your design work, writing checks to people to do video editing, writing checks to people to do some of your social media management. If you're in that position, or you've been on that position, and you've hired for that position, or you've worked for that position before, you are a credible source of information for somebody who looks to do that. Someone who has not done that, someone who doesn't do that, someone who doesn't hire, has not hired, or has not worked in the industry in years and years and years, is probably not a credible source of information. No matter how intelligent they are, no matter how well-intentioned they are, that'd be like taking stock advice from somebody who's never invested in their life. That would be taking driving lessons from somebody who's never driven a car before or hasn't done it in a very, very long time. It's not the greatest idea in the world. And again, I don't mean that to be dismissive or offensive toward anyone in your life. I'm saying that if you want to be successful at a particular thing, someone with the experience, and not just prior experience, but active experience that's a practitioner in the industry, is your best source of information. So you need to be cultivating those relationships. You need to be marketing and networking with those people, because they can tell you what works and what doesn't in a very realistic and practical way, because they're making real money at it, or they're doing it day in and day out. You know, you're probably saying, okay, that's great, Roberto, but how do I make a living at a creative career? One of the things you have to understand is you have to make a distinction between whether you're going to work for an employer or whether you're going to be a contractor of some time. And what is practical for the state of the marketplace in the industry? Because I'll tell you right now that in-house creative positions are drying up. There are people losing those positions now, and it's going much more toward a freelance market and a freelance economy. I actually did an article for How Design about the gig economy and how that affects creatives, especially designers, and where things are going with that. And it's very real that those freelance jobs are growing and in-house positions are shrinking. You can still get an in-house position. You can still work for an agency. I'm just saying that the competition is increasing. The demand is shrinking with regard to the hiring aspect of that for full-time work. But for individual one-off projects, the market's never been better. So you have to think about your positioning and think about what you really want. Now, what many people will argue for is there's more stability in a 9-to-5 job. And I can tell you that that mentality is a little outdated, and here's the reality of that. If you work in a 9-to-5 position, and I did this in corporate America multiple times for a long time, the reality is that it's not really job security, because it only takes one person in a position of authority not liking you for you to not have a way to make an income. Because not only can they fire you, but they could impact your overall career and reputation, especially if you are a younger person and you don't have a ton of experience, or if you're an older person and you've worked at that company for the majority of your adult life, and if for whatever reason they decide to do that to you. And it could be nothing to do with your quality of work. It might not be that you deserve it. It could be the internal politics of the company. It could be that they felt slighted in any kind of way. There's any number of things where that can go wrong that's not your fault. And we all know this because we all know vindictive, petty people. And sometimes those people are in a position of authority over you, and you have very little control over whether that's your situation or not. What you have control over is what you do on your off hours, which is why I tell people that doing your own personal projects that you have ownership over, developing your own personal brand, and doing non-compete side work in something relevant, then those things matter because you have a reputation, you have a body of work to leverage independent of a singular employer. Because here, let's do another scenario. What if you end up having to leave or what have you, or your department gets downsized? It's not even that you're being fired for any negative reason or anybody's out to get you, but there's something in your contract where all the work you did is work for hire. You can't use it in your portfolio going forward. That's a very real thing, and that does happen to a lot of people. I had a friend who worked in the military, and her MOS had to do with video editing and marketing and production and so on. And when she left, she wasn't able to use any of her work from that particular job, from her job within the military. She wasn't able to use it in her portfolio. And it's a good thing that she had done some side projects and that we had worked together and that I was a reference for her and she had other clients that were a reference for her, because without having that body of work, that job that she had been doing for all those years, that body of work that she thought she was going to use in addition to her experience while she served her country, all went out the window, and she would have had to start from zero, and that would have been very hard and very discouraging. But she didn't have to start from zero in terms of references, she didn't have to start from zero in terms of relationships, and she didn't have to start from zero with a body of work, because she was doing things in her off hours so that she could have control of her brand and her career and her resume and her reputation. So if you are somebody and you're pursuing a creative career and you get a 9-to-5 job, don't think that when you clock out at 6 p.m., which is when you'll really clock out, I know it says 9 to 5, you'll be clocking out at 6 or 6:30, that's the real world, then don't think that it ends there. You still have to at some point go home and hustle for yourself for an hour at least if you really want to be successful and have a future, because once you make someone else the end all and the be all and the deciding factor in your paycheck and in your career and in your credentials, you're in a very vulnerable place if you're not building up your personal brand, your portfolio, and your projects and staying sharp and staying on top of the industry. And so I would encourage you to not slack off and get comfortable and think that there's a such thing as job security, because there just isn't. Job security is a myth. You are only as valuable, or rather, let me put it like this. You are paid in proportion to the perceived value of the problem that you solve. And if you are no longer indispensable in solving that problem, you are eliminated. That's very true. Go find me a switchboard operator that's still working today. That's very true. I would say that one of the things that you have to really look at is that instead of worrying about job stability, you should look at the roadmap of your overall career. You should look at the roadmap of your overall career, and if this job goes away, what if your department isn't downsized? What if the company goes under? What if you have a CEO that's dipping their hand in the cookie jar? Where if your CEO gets a scandal, you don't want to be associated with a brand that has a scandal and working for them, because even if it wasn't your fault, the reputation could bleed over. So you have to have independent control of your career on some level, even if what you want is a 401k and job stability. You have to think about, well, how do I get the next job after this? Or if there's an artificial ceiling in place where there's not a ladder for you to move up, how do you jump over to a new company and go up that ladder? You have to put yourself in a position to do that. So in addition to all that work, you also need to be doing networking. You need to actually be building up your contacts. You need to be going to industry events. You need to be talking to people. You need to be going to conferences. You need to deal with other local small business owners and have a good relationship so that when you need an opportunity, when you need a new job, when you need an introduction, that's there for you, and you're not starting from zero, and you're not panicked, that you already have people that you can call in favors with. You already have people who will vouch for you, who will fight for you, and who will look out for you. You got to think about who's going to have your back. In fact, there's a book on my shelf by Keith Ferrazzi, Who's Got Your Back, Never Eat Alone. I'll link up some books in the description that you guys should check out and some other resources. But these are things that I wish had been told to me when I got started in my career. When I got started in my career, even in college, one of the things they didn't teach us enough about, which I really wish they would focus on, is the importance of networking. They really didn't stress that enough. They also didn't stress enough how much we should be setting aside, and that we should be setting aside that in case our job is eliminated or anything, that we have something to live off of. And that we need to be thinking about that. And in negotiating our salary, we need to think about not just the bills that we're paying. We need to be thinking about going beyond that and how we accumulate savings so that if this job doesn't last, that we have something to tide us over until we can get a new position. They weren't teaching us that. They weren't teaching us how to build our own creative business so that one day, if we want to go our own way, we could do that. And yet again, I want to stress, I'm not knocking college. I'm not knocking your professors. I'm just saying that these things aren't and weren't in place, and I think that they're very practical, and I think they're very important, and I think they're things that we need to be able to talk about, and that's why I talk about them here on the channel, so that you have an alternative source of information from someone living in the real world that's been the employee, been the freelance contractor, worked at an agency, worked in-house, worked, for themselves, owns and runs a business, hires other people to do stuff at this point, still does stuff with clients and manages clients of my own. So that's a very real thing. I've moved more to the marketing and consulting and content and media production side of what I do with Create Awesome Media instead of being a full-time freelance designer. I made that practical decision because I saw where, for me, I had to do the 80-20 rule. I had to see, wow, the majority of my profits are coming from this thing instead of that thing. And then I had to make a very smart pivot for me because I had to leave ego off of the table. I had to make a very, very practical, purpose-driven decision to do much less with visual branding and design, and to only do that in the context if I thought that I was the best person to do it on a campaign within the context of a small portion of a larger thing that a client would want from a content development standpoint, meaning this, that if I think that I'm going to do the best job on the YouTube thumbnails for a video marketing and brand development package that we're doing for a client, where we're handling some of the editing, they're handing us the materials that they produce, they're handing us the photography, and I think that, gee, out of everybody, I could probably make the best thumbnail out of this, then I would take part of that on. But if I didn't think that I could do that, I would hand that off to somebody else. That's part of a necessary thing that you have to come to a conclusion on, of where you're going to take ego out of the equation and where it's okay to let go of a little bit of a sense of ownership over something to deliver on the best project possible. I'm more interested in delivering on the best project possible for my client than what I can take credit for. I don't need to take credit. I'm going to cash the check. So I don't need to take credit when I can just cash the check, right? So that's something that it was not the easiest thing to do. Do not mistake it when I say this, because it wasn't the easiest thing to do, because Every creative person has just a little bit of vanity, but the more you can let go of that vanity, you'll realize that vanity is a very expensive thing to hold on to, and you learn to let go of it. So, as an artist, I will tell you that the day that you learn to abandon all vanity is the day you'll stop being a starving artist. It's what I sarcastically refer to as grow up and sell out, but it's not really selling out. It's about you sold out, meaning that you're in demand. And when you have something that's in demand, it's more, it's easier than you would possibly imagine to not have an ego about things when you are selling them. When you are selling a service or a product, you let go of a lot of the romanticism because you're really adamant about making sure you have the best thing that you possibly can on the shelf and that you're delivering for other people. Because in the process of wanting to deliver for other people, your hangups and your vanity and your romanticism about the creative will take a back seat to the deliverable and to making sure that the other person is satisfied with what they've got. In my mind, that may be one of the best ways you can interpret that form follows function. That the form, the creative, the aesthetic, all of those things that we like to romanticize as artists will take a back seat to whether it accomplished what was needed by the client, by the consumer, by the customer. And when you really empathetically are being of service, that's when you'll do your best work, because you will be taken out of the equation. Yes, putting yourself into your work does produce great work, especially as an artist, but it'll become, as if you're a creative that's trying to do something in the business world, you'll find that, yes, when you're passionate and you really care about this, you'll do your best work. When you're passionate and you really care about other people, you will do the greatest work that you have done. You may not be doing your best personally satisfying work, but your greatest work will be the work that's done in the service of other people. You'll find that that's absolutely true. At least, again, that's been my experience. Maybe you'll have a different experience. I'm not going to sit there and say that you'll find that that's true, because that sounds a little insincere, because everyone has an individual experience, right? But I genuinely believe that you'll find that to be true. I genuinely believe that if you start to think about how what you do facilitates and serves others, that it will produce some of your greatest work of all time. Anyway, guys, that's what I've got for you today. I just wanted to have a creative conversation. I wanted to have some creative thoughts with you guys. We'll be back very soon to your regularly scheduled format where I'm giving you design tips and career advice in a 8 to 10 or 12 minute kind of video where everything's on a tripod. I am going to be doing a little bit more with rollovers and lower thirds and slide decks and some other things, but I really just wanted to have this conversational video with you guys. It was a lot easier to just do it with the vlogging camera and in vlogging form here in front of the bookshelf than anything else. And maybe I'll do more videos like this in the future if you guys actually are kind of into it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have questions about your creative career, whether you're a designer, whether you're an artist, whether you're a writer, a photographer, a filmmaker, let me know in the comment section. I definitely want to hear from you guys. Also, I'm planning a show around creatives. Think of it almost like a Ask Gary Vee style type show, but for the creative world. And so I'm going to be doing a lot of Q&A. I'm going to be highlighting and showing off people's creative projects. I'm going to do kind of like a challenge of the day kind of thing creatively. Anyway, I'd love to get some ideas and feedback from you guys on what you'd like to see in that show. That show probably will be coming sometime in late spring of 2017. Like this video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out the other awesome content on the channel. As always, you guys, thanks so very much for watching. And don't forget, create something awesome today. Take care.